Everyone thought he was normal. The kind of neighbor you see every day, but never really notice. He smiled, stayed quiet, kept to himself. Nothing strange. Nothing alarming. But behind his door, there was a secret that shocked the entire world. One moment, one escape, and everything came crashing down. This is the story of Jeffrey Dahmer. He didn't stand out. If you saw him walking down the street, you wouldn't stop. You wouldn't remember his face. He was just there, blending in with everyone else. That's what made everything so unsettling later. Because when people looked back, they realized they had seen him so many times. And never once felt afraid. His life followed a routine. Simple. Repetitive. Predictable. He kept to himself. Didn't talk much. Didn't draw attention. Neighbors got used to him. A quiet presence in the building. Someone who existed, but didn't matter. And maybe that's why no one ever questioned anything. At first, nothing seemed wrong. Days passed like normal. People went to work. Came home. Lived their lives. The hallway echoed with ordinary footsteps. Doors opened and closed. Everything felt safe. But slowly, things began to change. Not suddenly. Not in a way that made people panic. Just small details. Easy to ignore. Someone mentioned it once. Then again. Then it became something people talked about quietly. Unusual behavior. Moments where something didn't feel right. But no one could explain why. Still, no one thought it meant something serious. Because the idea of something truly dark felt impossible. So life continued. As if nothing was wrong. Behind one door. Everything was different. A hidden life existed. Carefully kept secret. Carefully controlled. On the outside. Nothing changed. He still walked the same hallway. Still nodded at neighbors. Still looked completely normal. But inside, there were secrets. Secrets that had been building, for years. Time passed quietly. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. Months into years. And no one truly knew what was happening just a few steps away. That is what makes this story so disturbing. Not just the truth. But how close it was. How easily it stayed hidden. Then came the night everything changed. It didn't start with a loud noise. It didn't start with chaos. It started with something simple. A moment that could have been ignored. But this time, it wasn't. A young man ran into the street. He looked terrified. Looking over his shoulder again and again. Like he was trying to escape something. He didn't stop. Didn't slow down. Just kept moving, searching for help. When he finally found it, he refused to go back. No matter what anyone said. Something had happened. Something serious. Police were called. At first, it seemed routine. Just another situation. Just another call. But something felt different. When officers arrived, they didn't know they were about to uncover something that would shock the entire country. The building looked ordinary. The hallway was quiet. Nothing unusual. The door looked like any other door. Closed. Silent. Hiding everything behind it. When they stepped inside, everything changed. The atmosphere felt heavy. Uncomfortable. Like something wasn't right. They began to look around. At first, nothing obvious. Just a normal space. But then, small details started to appear. Things that didn't make sense. Things that raised questions. And slowly, the truth began to reveal itself. Piece by piece. Moment by moment. Everything started to come together. What they discovered. was something they would never forget. A hidden reality. A secret life. Exposed all at once. In that moment, everything changed. The quiet neighbor was no longer just a neighbor. He became the center of the Jeffrey Dahmer case. News spread quickly. Faster than anyone expected. Across the city. Across the country. People were shocked. Confused. Afraid. How could someone so normal hide something like this? How could no one notice? Neighbors couldn't believe it. They had seen him. Walked past him. Lived near him. And yet, they never knew. That realization changed everything. The place that once felt normal now felt different. Uncomfortable. Unsettling. Because the truth had changed how people saw everything. And maybe that's the most frightening part. Not just what happened, but how easily it stayed hidden. People tried to understand it. But the more they thought about it, the more confusing it became. Because nothing about him matched what they expected. He didn't look dangerous. He didn't act threatening. He didn't stand out. And maybe that's what made everything so disturbing. When the truth came out, it didn't just shock the people who lived nearby. It shocked the entire country. Because this wasn't something that happened far away. This happened in an ordinary place. In an ordinary building. In a life that looked completely normal from the outside. Investigators began putting the pieces together. Step by step. Trying to understand how something like this could stay hidden for so long. The timeline stretched back years. Years where nothing seemed wrong. Years where life continued as usual. And during all that time, no one truly knew. Neighbors started remembering small details. Things they once ignored. Things that now felt important. Moments that didn't make sense before. Now began to connect. A strange smell. An uncomfortable feeling. A moment of doubt. All of it suddenly meant something. But by then, it was too late. The story spread everywhere. News reports. Conversations. People trying to understand what had happened. Some were scared. Others were simply shocked. But everyone had the same question. How could something like this stay hidden for so long? And the answer wasn't simple. Because the truth is, sometimes people don't see what they don't expect to see. Sometimes, normal is the perfect disguise. As more details came out, the story became even harder to believe, not because of how it looked on the outside, but because of how long it stayed hidden. People started questioning everything. Their surroundings. Their neighbors. Their own sense of safety. Because if something like this could happen here, it could happen anywhere. That thought stayed with people. Long after the news faded. Long after the headlines disappeared. Even today, the case is remembered. Discussed. Analyzed. Not just for what happened, but for what it revealed. It revealed how easy it is to overlook small signs. How easy it is to trust what we see on the surface. And how difficult it is to imagine something darker beneath it. The quiet neighbor. The ordinary routine. The normal life. All of it created a perfect illusion. An illusion that lasted for years. Until one moment changed everything. That moment. When someone escaped. When the silence was broken. When the truth finally came out. Everything before that moment was hidden. Everything after could never be forgotten. And maybe that's why this story still feels so unsettling. Because it forces a question no one is comfortable answering. How well do we really know the people around us? Not the version we see, but the reality we never question. Because sometimes, the most dangerous secrets don't look dangerous at all. They don't shout. They don't warn. They don't reveal themselves easily. They blend in. They become part of everyday life. And that's what makes them so hard to see. If you walked past him, you wouldn't stop. You wouldn't feel afraid. You wouldn't think twice, and that is what makes this story so chilling. Not just the truth, but how close it was to everyone. Right there. In the same building. In the same hallway. In the same everyday routine. Hidden in plain sight. The world moved on. But the story stayed. A reminder. A warning. A question that still lingers. Because sometimes, the scariest things aren't the ones we see. They're the ones we don't. And by the time we finally do, everything has already changed. The door that once looked ordinary no longer feels the same. The silence feels different. Because now, we know what can hide behind it. And that thought is what makes this story unforgettable. Because in the end, it wasn't just about one person. It was about how easily reality can hide behind something that looks completely normal. And how, sometimes, the truth is closer than we ever expect. Closer than comfort. Closer than safety. Closer than we're ready to believe. Hidden in plain sight.